Hey, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. I am so excited to bring you Josh Seiter and to have this conversation with me and him. And it's going to be amazing. And I just want to say, I really appreciate all of you showing up. Now, before I bring him up here on the stage, I just want to let you guys know that I'm having a civil conversation. I'm not here to make fun or to be a jerk, or you all know me, right? You all know how I build bridges here. That is very important to me in my work and creating this channel. And so whatever you guys' personal thoughts are about Josh, that's okay. And you're allowed to have those thoughts. And I think even Josh would agree with that. But what I want you to know is that for me today here, I just want to have a conversation with Josh, and I want to get some things out there. And I'm not going to be trying to fool him or do these, these gotcha questions. It's just not what I believe will create a better world for all of us. So, that I just want to say that, and I want to move forward here because we'll probably be on with him for like 20 or 30 minutes, and then we'll move forward from that. So I just want you to be prepared that it's not going to be this mean, angry, gotcha kind of space. I want to be friends with Josh, so that's how I'm coming to it. Okay, so here we go. I'm going to bring Josh up, and then we'll get going. Hey, Josh, nice to see you.
Good to see you, Buck. Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Right on, friend. Thank you so much for being here. It means a lot to me that you're willing to always, have these conversations. So with that, I want to start off with I'm gonna say this, I get myself in a lot of hot water, my friend, because it's not my community. So I want to say first off that I appreciate what you did in calling out the community and its hypocrisy. And I think what you did really stunned a lot of people, but at the same time, really made the point across that I have been trying to make for a long time. So with that, you want to talk a little bit about why you did that?
Yeah, well, as you mentioned, I just wanted to show how ridiculous, how absurd I felt things had gotten in the tea community. I just saw people, especially, it kind of reached its apotheosis with Dylan Mulvaney. And to me, that
Yeah.
was just straight up mockery. It was straight up woman face. I think lots of people found it offensive. And I felt she is very celebrated by the left, celebrated in the media, accepted unquestioningly, and I did not like that. And so I wanted to say, look, the rules have become so loose, everything's so ill-defined to the point that what it is to be trans is meaningless. What it is to be a
Yeah.
woman is meaningless. And I said, I want to show that. And so I did it with this social experiment by showing, hey, I'm a 37-year-old buff, hairy man that just decided overnight to become a woman. Are you going to celebrate me too? And I felt like, about half of them did. And I felt that kind of showed just how bad it's gotten, and that's something we need to come up with some ground rules and what it means to be trans.
Yeah.
Let's actually make an effort to dive into that. And I wanted to open a discussion and a dialectic like the one me and you are having today.
Excellent, my friend. And so with that, I think what you did is make people now start to see what's going on and how easy it was for you to just say you were, and like organizations like GLAD and organizations like I think the Human Rights Organization and certain trans rights, they were all supporting you. It was shocking to me. I'm like, how can you guys not see that this is so foolish and it's so embarrassing that they were supporting you? Did you know that they were all supporting you?
I didn't know about those organizations specifically. I was getting millions, and I think I ended up getting like 70 million views on my videos that I put out, and hundreds of
Wow.
thousands of comments and
Wow.
interactions on the posts, and so it's hard for me to keep up. But
Yeah.
just the way the I was not surprised by their support though, because the medical community's rules are so loose now. You call yourself a transsexual because you
Yeah.
did surgeries and you took concrete steps to outwardly express how you felt on the inside with your gender identity. Now, the medical literature, medical community does not require any of that. You don't have to have gender dysphoria. You don't have to take hormones. You don't have to get surgery. And you don't even need to transition to be trans. And so, again, I operated within their rules. I never
Yeah.
violated them. I operate, and I wanted to say, look, is this what you want? Do you want
Yeah.
Josh Seiters to cut? Is this really where we're at? There has to be some kind of defined, crystallized rules of what it really means to be trans, because I feel like it doesn't mean what it did when we used to refer to transsexuals, or how you in your interviews talk about it. You lay out exactly, hey, I can't change my sex, but I can express my gender identity by
Yeah.
taking steps to get there. And I feel like that's just kind of gone by the wayside. Now you're looked at as the old guard, and I don't like that.
I mean, thank you. Appreciate that because it is true. It's why I really fight for this space. And so, I know that there was a part on when you went on Alex Stein and you exposed yourself, and it was really I was so all the way up to me. Of course, then I think I felt like Alex put me in that space to sort of stump you on some level, and you were not familiar with my work, and I
No, I
really
wasn't.
could tell. I could tell because you didn't understand who and what I've been fighting. I've been fighting for everything you did. And how long were you doing that for? Like 6 or 7 months?
Yeah,
Something.
about 5.5, almost 6 months. Yeah.
And I've been saying this for years, man, for years. And I transitioned 32 years ago, right? So can you imagine a person like me seeing this stuff and it's just
Yeah.
happening? It's like horrifying for me. And so you get on Alex Stein, and I really everything you were saying was so like on point, my friend. And I'm like, I'm with you, dude. And then I came up and I became sort of the butt by the joke. But I'm sort of used to that. I think I discussed that with you behind on off camera. That being said, I don't have issues with that. But what I wanted to just clear up here, and I think that you now know who I am, and I think that you now see me and see. I just want to ask you: do you think that there are actual people like me who exist, and we do need this medication and this transition to be able to live? Do you believe that transsexual people are real?
Yes, I do. I believe, whatever moniker we give it, whether it's trans or something else, I think people suffering with gender dysphoria, there is no doubt that some people benefit immensely from being able to do what you did and take the steps to, we're a free country. If you're a grown adult and
I
you
know.
want to take steps to feel more like on the outside how you to match what's on the inside, I think people should be allowed to do that. Women are allowed to get facelifts. Guys can get
Yeah.
on hormones. That should be allowed. I think the issue we encounter, as you spoke extensively about in your interviews, is what are we doing when it comes to kids? What are we doing when it comes to what we're teaching in lower education? And what are we doing about the rules? Do we have some kind of a gate to ensure that the people that are saying they're part of our community actually are? And so I just saw a lot of people malingering. I felt like it was reaching kind of a fad status. It was what's in vogue among some people. And I was
Yeah.
like, hold up, I think we need to put some gates up because this is reaching ridiculous proportions.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I appreciate that. Thank you, friend. And I think that if you knew who I was before that was kind of put in your face, I do believe you would have had a different reaction to me. And when you said, well, it's his community, well, I don't blame you for saying that. I don't, because people think it is my community. And that's why I really talk about it not being my community. And that why I really separate the word transsexual from transgender, and how important that people see I have I acknowledge my mental. This isn't normal. I never said it's not normal for a woman to want to be a man or a man to want to be a woman. It's a mental disorder, and I accept that disorder, and I'm very okay with it. And this doing what I did here doesn't make me a man. And as you know, I now probably by researching me a little, I've always advocated for the fact that we have to be honest about who we are as transsexuals. The transgender community has got dude, they're a bunch of wingnut crazy people. And you actually proved it by you were you are so off the wall that the fact that people just believed you, to, you must just blow your mind that people just went along with it.
I feel like, I used from the very beginning reductio ad absurdum, which, in logic is a form of argument that says you can disprove a proposition by showing how, when taken to its natural and logical end, it results in absurdity. And I said, all right, I'm going to do that. I'm just going to show that I am the end result of how absurd this has gotten. And all you have to
Right.
do is just watch my videos and go, wow, this is a circus now. And I think it got people thinking that, and so I think that's good. I do
Yes.
obviously There's people that are genuinely suffering from gender dysphoria, and they identify as trans, and I think they should be able to take whatever steps they need to feel
Yes.
better. The issue arises less so when it's females identifying as males, and when there's males self-identifying as females. We're running into a
Wow.
lot of problems in sports
Thank
and
you.
changing rooms and
Yep.
restrooms, and now it's become a women's rights issue and a consent issue. And I think that's where the real problem is. I don't see as
Yes.
many problems when it's a female going to male, only because we don't
Yes.
have issues of prison. There's not females
Yeah.
going to males prison. It's just
No.
males being requested to go into female prison. So I think
Right.
my issue is unique to the male to female, and I don't really see any societal or personal or health issues when it's female to male, as you did.
Great point, and that's really what I argue for as well. Being a biological female, I'm 62, by the way, so 30 years of my life I lived in the female space as a gay woman and all of that, and, to see men saying they're women, which is why what you did really exposed the hypocrisy of it all, that any man can say they're a woman and then be put in a prison. I had interviews with people in the prison system, and it's horrifying what's happening in there, and people are just turning their head. Women are being raped in there. Women are being like totally abused in there because men are saying they're women, and it's and sports. I'm everything. Me and you are completely in alignment, my friend. Like sports, children should not be doing. I don't know how you feel about the children, but I'm telling you, as an old school transsexual, nope, children should never be. This is a last, like, sort of resort, if that makes sense. Like, this should be the last thing you do. You should try to get yourself out of this situation. You shouldn't be trying to sort of live in this situation, if that makes sense.
Yeah, there's a difference between passively sitting back and saying, hey, if you guys
Yeah.
need our help, we are here. But when you're actively recruiting and injecting that ideology into literature and the pedagogical methods of teachers when it
Yes.
comes to young kids, now we've gone away from just passively being there and saying, hey, we'll provide services if you're a grown adult and you need it, to actively grooming young kids. To me, it smacks of
Yeah.
psychology, it smacks of
Yes.
a cult, and it's gonna just make people suspicious.
That's
Even
right.
if some of the people are well intentioned, it just looks suspicious. And the kids are too young. Their brains cannot comprehend when their teacher, as just happened this past week, says, hey, little kids, you need to call me she and her. Even though, why are you confusing little kids? So I think that's terrible. I've seen that you fight against that. I think that's
Yes.
fantastic. And your point about prisons, look, male patterns of violence don't change just because that male self-identifies as a woman. And so
That's right.
now we're injecting male patterns of violence into women's prisons. Lots of those women didn't do anything violent, but they're being housed with a violent biological male.
Wow.
Redux has done great work on this. And, women are being raped and impregnated.
Yep.
And so it's just an issue that is much more important, I think, when it comes to male to female than it is female to male. But I think it's still
Yeah.
important to have this discussion regardless.
Well, yeah, and as you notice, I mean, there's not very many guys like me, right, female to male, who are even outspoken about this or against this or any of that. And also, I transitioned 32 years ago. I have a lot of experience in this. It's why the transgender community tries to shut me down or to discredit me. If you don't know that, they always try to discredit me. They actually call me transphobic. That's how insane the whole thing has gotten. But that being said, you're right. It's the male to female space that has gotten so out of control. And I'll tell you, one of the things I think is the reason why that has gotten that way is because we've opened the door, and what you say is self-ID, but we've opened the door to people who are fetishists and now I want to say this, I don't have any issues with anybody who has a fetish or any of that kind of. As an adult, you can watch pornography, you can do whatever you need to do, but it doesn't need to be put in people's faces it's non-consensual. And it's also in a space where you're saying you're trans when you're not trans. You're probably just a cross-dresser or right. You talked about AGP or a fetishist. We need to have these conversations. And that's other thing I think you exposed. You exposed that one day you could just be a man, and the next day you could say, I'm a woman, and talk in that voice and be like, oh, and the things you were saying, you were Josh, you are taking things right off the lips of these of these trans women. You know, like, oh, how come there's no tuck underwear at Target? Like, it was so brilliant, genius.
Thank you. I mean, I tried to stick to literally only saying things that had already been said before, only doing things that had only been done before. You know, all my themes were themes that had been explored by people claiming they were genuine trans women. And so, yeah, I tried to just play within the rules and the boundaries the whole time, or else I felt like it wasn't fair. And
Yeah,
so going to autogynephilia, I mean, that is just a huge issue. How do you know who truly has gender dysphoria,
right.
is struggling, could benefit from services that
Yeah,
may help them transition, and then just a man that's, you know, turned on at the thought of himself being a woman? How do we
yes,
distinguish, and who's going to keep women safe in restrooms if it happens to be the person with autogynephilia? I mean, these are
that's right.
legitimate issues we should be allowed
That's
to
right.
talk about. They're important, salient problems facing us, given the
Yes.
amount of trans people that identify in the United States. And I think it's good that we have this dialogue, because I feel like anytime someone tries to raise a question, they're
Yeah,
just silenced or censored. Oh, you're a bigot. Oh, you're a
that's right.
transphobe. No, people want to have a conversation about this because it matters, and it's very
Yes.
nuanced.
Yeah, it matters. Not only does it matter to women and children, first off, women's rights are being completely trampled over. And it is a very misogynistic movement. I really believe that. Seeing it from my own eyes, I'm a biological female. I will never not say that. I just look like a dude, but I'm not a dude, if that makes sense, right? And I'm very
Yep.
grounded around that. And I have no issues. And I know how to sort of make fun of myself, if that makes sense. But that being said, this is not funny anymore. And it's gotten so bad that women are being so sidelined. I just saw a woman who went into a spa, right? And she went into the spa, and there was a dude in the spa with his wiener hanging out. And she was like, she went out and she's like, there's a man in the women's restroom. And they're like, that's a trans woman. And I'm like, wait a minute here. Now, how do we stop this from happening,
Well, I
Josh?
think with the progressive movement, they lots of times start out with something that's good, valid, you know, an issue
Of
that needs
course.
pressed, but it always seems to get taken to these extremes where it then becomes counterproductive. So it's almost cannibalistic. And what I mean by
Yeah,
that is, look at the
right.
feminist movement, all the strides they've made over the last 6, 7, 8 decades. And I feel like those are slowly being erased now. It's
Yes.
cannibalistic. They start to eat their own. And now women's rights and the radical feminists, it's all about objectifying the body and, you know,
Yes.
allowing biological men to come into women's spaces and slowly push them out of literature. They're having cervix commercials in England that feature a biological male instead of a woman, and it's talking about uteruses, a male. I mean, you want to talk about patriarchy, you want to talk about
Yeah.
male hegemony, you want to talk about, you know, lack of consent. We are seeing the intersectionalities of all of those things when it comes to male to female, and that's why it's
Yes.
such a unique issue, and it needs to be addressed, because there's a lot of problems going on that need to be talked about that no one wants to talk about.
It's I guess my question, I mean, do you have I do not understand, honestly, how we cannot have a logical, reality-based conversation. And I don't understand how in a community that I have been a part of for a long time, my friend, that we were living. I live perfectly fine. I have a beautiful life, friend. I do not suffer or want for anything. I'm able to be this man. I'm able to walk the world this way. People like me. Like, I just don't have any issues because I think I'm honest. But I guess my question, or my thing that I want to pose is, how could it come to this? Do you have any thought on how we could literally let men override certain men, not all men, but it's a very male-dominated conversation in the trans world now. You know that. It's a male to female, whatever that means at this point, right? Dominated conversation. Is it because it's a male-dominated conversation that it got so out of control?
Well, that's a really good point when you look at it through that lens of, is
Yeah.
it because it's men and so they're able, as they, we have been throughout history, to kind of take over and co-opt spaces for ourselves. Some people may say that's conspiratorial. Oh, it's not a men's issue. It's about, trans women are women, is what they would argue. But I think sensible people like me and you can agree that there's differences. Trans women are biological men. They can't change their sex, as you've acknowledged, but they would like to identify as women.
Yeah.
And I think grown
Yeah.
adults can do whatever they want. But what
Yes.
people are saying, people are not saying, I don't acknowledge your existence. Okay. They're not saying, I don't
Right.
acknowledge that you're not struggling with gender dysphoria or being trans, whatever you want to call it. They're
Okay.
just saying, look, you can do whatever you want to do, but don't
Yeah.
make that part of the curriculum in my kid's school. Don't have
Right.
that
Yeah.
affect me when I want to do something and not be bothered by it.
That's right.
Women shouldn't have to worry about going into a changing room and seeing a male phallus. They're not
That's
saying
right.
these people don't exist. They're just saying you need to do it without encroaching on our right to do things and to have privacy. So I think a solution to this, since we should talk
Yeah.
about solutions, would be,
Yeah.
I don't see anything wrong with, trans locker rooms or trans restrooms or say trans sports and leagues. And I know that's
Yeah.
difficult because you need a quorum of people or to, have a team, and it might be hard to get a trans team going at certain schools or park districts. But I think that is a tenable and possible solution, because what else is there? And I think that's a level playing field, at least with sports. If women play with other trans women, trans men play with other trans men.
Right.
But whether there's enough people to make that happen, I don't know. But we need to start talking about alternative solutions, because
That's right.
whatever's happening now is
That's right.
chipping away at a lot of things that women have accomplished. It's
Yes.
overriding women's consent, and it's encroaching on their right to
Yeah.
privacy. And so it's just, again, a very nuanced issue.
Well, okay. We don't have to go on forever here, but here's what I want to say about that. As a transsexual person, this is what I keep trying to tell the world, and especially this transgender community. When you choose, because it's a choice, I made a choice, okay, to do this. I didn't have to do this. I chose to do this in order to make myself feel better in the world. Now, that being said, when you choose to make this choice, you don't get everything you want. You actually lose things. And that's where you have to come to it when you transition. Just because you transition doesn't mean now that you get to play in women's sports or you get to go in women's restrooms or even I get to use the men's room. That's not how it works, okay? Because we're a very small minority population. We always will be. We always have been. So, yes, I think that's a great solution. But the bottom line is there's just never going to be enough trans players to do that. So, guess what? Pick another thing to do. And you can't play sports. Sorry. Or you can play on the pickup team at the park. You know what I mean? Sorry, you can't be a woman athlete, if that makes sense. And that's really how I feel about as a trans person. The solution is to just back off of women, friend, and back off of you need to be in women's sports because you're trans. That's the solution, is that we now need to understand you don't get to have everything when you're trans. Sometimes you just have to figure out what it is you need to do for yourself and move forward and not cram it down everybody's throat. And so that's kind of where I feel you and I intersect in this, and that some people will hate you for what you did. And some people like me will say, what you did, I think, was a service, not only to this trans nonsense, but to the world on some level, to show the hypocrisy that is happening on so many levels around so many things. And I think there's a lot of women who appreciate you, Josh. And I really do, because I know a lot of women came to me and said that they appreciated you. And so whatever people are saying about you, I think that you had to do that. Somebody had to do it. And it was you. And you chose to do it. So that's kind of really where I want to leave it. And if you have any thoughts. And I also want everybody to know I'm not angry at Josh. Whatever he said about me, it happened because I believe it happened in a space that you weren't prepared. And we've had conversation off camera, and you have come to it with a very open heart. And I think that you express that trans people like me do exist. So
Yeah, and I hadn't done any research on you. I knew of you. I actually watched a documentary on you. I think it
Yeah.
was on one of the streaming platforms a few
Yeah.
years ago. But I wasn't familiar with the ins and outs of your ideology, and I
Yeah.
just assumed that it's like one big monolith. It's just this echo chamber. Everyone believes the exact same thing. So why would I believe that Buck Angel believes anything different
Exactly.
than the official narrative we're hearing every
That's
day,
right.
which is everyone's valid. You can change your sex. A
That's
trans
right.
woman's a real woman. There's no doubt. I just assumed you bought into that. And when I did my research, I was pleasantly surprised to see that you didn't. But to answer your question about last thoughts or whatever, I would just say
Yeah.
the whole thing that kind of inspired this was thinking, look, these people deserve to exist. And there's
Thank
basic
you.
rights that they need, human rights to exist. And I believe they have those things. And I believe they're entitled
Yes.
to all the same rights that we are. Trans women can change in men's bathrooms. They have a right to
Yeah.
do that. We're
Right.
just saying, hey, you can't go into women's bathrooms.
That's right.
So I think lots of times basic rights are being conflated with special privileges. Well, I want the special privilege to be able to play sports. I
That's
want the
right.
special privilege to be able to be on the women's team. I want the special privilege to be able to go into the women's restroom. It's like
Yeah.
those are privileges. You don't get carte blanche
Great.
to do whatever you want just because you're a trans woman. You can exist, but it doesn't mean you get to put
That's right.
your life in a little kid's book and then talk about the little kid's book in a skirt while you're twerking at an elementary school. Now we've gone from basic right to exist to a special privilege that is bordering on criminal. And so I just
Totally.
felt like it had gotten to that point where we're moving away from, hey, we should have equality and everyone should have a right to
Yep.
exist, to, hey, they get special privileges to do anything they want, even if it's criminal activity when it comes to kids. And I was like, okay, we need to have just a level headed conversation about what should be allowed and what shouldn't be allowed. Because I think most
Yeah.
people agree out there. We don't want
Yeah.
our 5 year olds being taught this stuff in school, and we
Nope.
don't want them having drag queens coming and stripping in front of them. So something
Totally.
had to be done. We had to
It's
have a conversation.
disgusting. Thank you, friend. I do appreciate you. And thank you. And to people who are like, where's the apology? He apologized. He actually did apologize. So that being, you might not have said, I apologize, but you made the point to say, I didn't know about you. And that was
Well,
it.
I
So
do apologize because I was wrong and I said
I
something incorrect, and I want to acknowledge that and set the
thank
record
you.
straight. And I actually was
Thank you.
reading when I was, about uh, I don't know, an hour into reading up about you and what you believe. I said, "Wow, I think we agree on everything." I literally
Everything.
said that out loud, and I was like, "He seems like a pretty level-headed,
Thank
logical,
you.
rational person." Like
Thank you.
I'm a fan of Buck. I'm a Buck Angel fan. Like, why are more people not? Why is the media not raising his voice? Why is
You
he
know
not
why.
on CNN providing a very logical and rational viewpoint that's never heard? And so I just think it's good that we get out of the echo chamber and have
Excellent.
more rational voices come together and talk like me and you did today.
Excellent, Josh. You're awesome. Thank you. I hope really that people see that you really do make the effort and that what you did is important. And it means a lot to me that you showed up today. And that means that you're a stand-up dude to me. And that's all I care about. So me and you built a bridge, dude. And
Yeah.
we built that bridge that I keep talking about. And this is how we're going to get back to a normal space and we can live side by side in the world. So thanks, Josh. I appreciate your time very much and have a great rest of your day. I'm going to take you off and then I'll talk to you later. Okay, dude?
All right. Thanks,
Right on.
Buck. Thanks for having me.
Bye. See ya. Thank you. Right on. Thank you guys so much for watching. Josh is a super cool dude. I hope you guys all enjoyed it very much. It really means a lot to me that he showed up today and that he really made the effort to have the conversation with me. Whether or not you agree with everything we say, you know me. I'm all about building a bridge. I don't need to make enemies out there, and I don't want to have enemies. I want to have people who, and the bottom line is me and him on a lot of levels have the same opinions about things. And that's the real important part. And he is a stand-up guy. He did apologize, even though I would have walked off this without an actual, like, I apologize, but he did do it. And so with that, I just want to say that you all mean a lot to me. And I can't do this without you. And so this is how we're going to come back to a sense of some being. Go Dodgers. I was waiting for someone to see my t-shirt because I got to get off here so I can go to the gym and then I can watch the Dodger game because it's the Dodgers and the Yankees. Do you know how crazy that is? And I'm not like the biggest sports fan in the world, but it's the Dodgers and the Yankees, which is super old school. it reminds me of like when I was a kid, it was always the Dodgers and the Yankees. So I hope that you see what we did here today, and that whatever your thoughts about Josh being a grifter and all that, you've got to look at the bigger picture. And what Josh did was really super important. And I think it's going to really help the actual real transsexuals in this world build a space to move forward. And people, we can get back to you seeing me as somebody who needs this space and needs the medication to go on. And so with that, you guys have I'll just read the super chats real quick here, okay, and then we'll get going. Oh, thanks for being a new member. I totally appreciate that, friend. Thank you so much, really. And hey, Prison Becky, Josh, you missed the boot big time. Buck has been saying for a long time. It's all good. He did his research after. He did. He made an effort. He really did. Let's give. But I appreciate that. Thank you. Karina says, love your shows. I do. And Blair White, I really catch one live. Sanity. You should run for Congress. Can you imagine if I ran? I think it would be pretty crazy if I ran for a political office. So Karina said, it's not fair and genuine transgender people like you and Blair White either. Yeah, it's not either what the far left are doing. It's not. It's disgusting, but Josh exposed it all, and that's actually one of the most important parts of that whole message, okay? So Karina says, transsexual is what I meant. Okay, that's all right, friend. And Mr. Tickle's Trunk says, keep up what you're doing, Buck. Crushing it. I crushing it because you guys rule and you guys support me, and everyone showed up today, which is like a big deal. We had a great big audience. Lizzie, hey, proud of you, Buck, and super impressed by everyone involved. This is how we fix the world. 100% totally agree. So I'm gonna Jenny's getting inky with it. That's a good one. So glad you both were able to talk and come to an understanding. Leads to more resources for those that are against the crazies. Appreciate you. Thank you, friend. Yep. It's how we're going to really build these bridges. Karina says, you're a good person. Want to make more enemies. You will make more friends. I don't need enemies, and I don't want enemies, right? Come on. Love you, Buck. Justin. Thank you, Justin. You know what? We don't need enemies, people. We need to start building more bridges. Thank you for being a member for 2 months. Bye, you guys. I love you so much. Have a beautiful, awesome weekend. I have a new reaction coming out. I think I'll either put it up tomorrow or Monday, but I think I'll put it up tomorrow because, oh my God, you're going to love this reaction. So with that, thanks everybody for joining. Just again, I'm going to leave this. Whatever you think of Josh, just know that he met me in the middle. And that's the most important part of this conversation today. So you guys all have a great go Dodgers. To all my Yankee people out there, go Dodgers. This is going to be an awesome game. I'll see you guys later. Have a great weekend.